We've been going over Shama'il Tirmizi, and the chapter I have before me today is Babu ma ja'a fi sifati kalami Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam fi sha'r. So this is a chapter in which the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam regarding poetry are mentioned. So Sayyida Aisha radiyallahu anha, she said, قِيلَ لَهَا هَلْ كَانَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يَتَمَثَّلُ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الشَّعْرِ. So she was asked, did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam say any poetry? And she said yes. He used to say the couplets of Abdullah bin Rawaha, or also Tarafa bin Abd as well. So there's one couplet that's mentioned by Tarafa. So he used to say, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said that وَيَأْتِيكَ بِالْأَخْبَارِ مَنْ لَمْ تُزَوِّدْ. So what this means is, sometimes you get news, but you have to pay for that khabar, for that news. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam here, he's saying that sometimes you get news, but you don't have to pay. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying that they don't value me, although I'm giving them the news of the unseen. So this is the first narration. The next narration, Abu Huraira radiyallahu an, he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أصدق كلمة قالها الشاعر كلمة اللبيد. So one of the best couplets and truthful couplets are the couplets of Labid. And this Labid, he became a Muslim. It's mentioned he lived up for 140 years. What did he say? He said, ألا كل شيء ما خلا الله باطل وكل نعيم لا محالة زائل. So basically here he's saying that apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything will perish. Everything will perish. And وَكُلُّ نَعِيمٍ, every bounty as well, every ni'mah, it will finish as well. And here it's mentioned, وَكَادَ أُمَيَّةُ بْنُ أَبِي الصَّلْتِ أَن يُسْلِمْ. So it was close that Umayyah, he would embrace Islam as well. He was going to, but he didn't embrace Islam. The next narration, Jundab bin Sufyan Bajali, he says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he cut his blessed finger and blood was coming out. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, Hal anti illa usbu'un damiti wa fi sabilillah ma laqiti. So here Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam is saying, look, I cut my finger, but even this is not going to go to waste. Inna Allah la yudi'u ajral muhsinin. There's a reward for this as well. So this was during Badr. Some say this was the couplets of Labid, or some say Abdullah bin Rawaha. Bara ibn Azib, he says, قال له رجل أفررتم عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يا أبا عمارة. So he was asked that during Hunain, did you desert the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم? So he said, لا والله ما ولا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولكن ولا سرعان الناس تلقتهم هوازن بالنبل. So he says that some youngsters, some new Muslims, they were in a hurry. When the arrows were being shot at them during Hunain, they left. But Bara ibn Azib is saying, I didn't leave. So he then says, وَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ عَلَى بَغْلَتِ وَأَبُو سُفْيَانَ آخِذٌ بِلِجَامِهَا وَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ يَقُولُ. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam during Hunain, he was on his mule. Abu Sufyan was holding the reins of the mule. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam was saying, Ana nabiyyu la kadhib, ana ibnu Abdil Muttalib. I am the Prophet without doubt. This is the truth. And I am the son of Abdul Muttalib. Here the scholars, they say, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the grandson of Abdul Muttalib. Here he's saying, I'm the son. They say because maybe his father passed away at a young age. So the father of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was not as famous as Abdul Muttalib. So this is maybe one of the reasons. And also this was famous that the grandson of Abdul Muttalib will be Khatamun Nabiyyin. He will be the seal. So when the kuffar attacked from all different directions, there were some new Muslims, they lost courage. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said these kind of couplets. And also it's mentioned that Hazrat Abbas had a loud voice. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam told Hazrat Abbas to announce. So then this is when some of the Sahaba that left, they came back. Anas radiyallahu anhu, he says, Anna Nabiyya sallallahu alayhi wasallam dakhala Makkah fi umratil qada. So Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you all are aware of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, which took place 6 Hijri, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam came with the Sahaba to perform Umrah, but they were not allowed. So now they're coming the following year to perform Umratul Qada, make up for that Umrah. So this is 7 Hijri. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam enters Makkah, and Wabnu Rawaha yamshi bayna yaday wa huwa yaqul. Abdullah bin Rawaha, he has his sword on his shoulders and he's holding the reins of the camel of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Abdullah bin Rawaha, he says these couplets. He says, Khallu banil kuffari an sabili, al-yawma nadribukum ala tanzili, darban yuzilul hama an maqili, wa yudhilul khalila an khalili. So he said these couplets that clear the path. So if you have the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in mind, that the Muslims, they came to perform Umrah, but they weren't allowed. And also the treaty was kind of one-sided. So this time, Abdullah bin Rawaha is saying, disbelievers, don't you dare prohibit the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam this time from entering Makkah like last year, or we'll deal with you. فقال له عمر يا ابن رواحة بين يدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وفي حرم الله تقول الشعر. Umar radiyallahu anhu said, O Abdullah bin Rawaha, you are in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are in the haram and you're saying poetry. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, leave him, O Umar. What he is saying, these couplets, they are more forceful than showering arrows at the enemy. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he says, and this statement has passed by as well, is very similar, that one of the best words a poet said were the sayings and the couplets of Labid, ala kullu shay'in ma khalallaha batil. The next narration, Amr bin Sharid, he narrates from his father Sharid. كنت ردف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأنشدته 100 قافية من قول أمية. Sharid says, I was on a conveyance, I was behind Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and I said 100 share, 100 share. And whenever I would say one share, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he would say, he. Okay? more. حتى أنشدته 100 يعني بيتا. He says that I said 100 couplets here, 100 shared. Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يضع لحسان بن ثابت منبرا في المسجد يقوم عليه قائما يفاخر عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أو قال ينافح عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam would make Hassan bin Sabit get on the mimbar, the pulpit, and he would stand and he would basically defend the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or he would praise the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. ويقول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تعالى يؤيد حسان بروح القدس ما ينافح أو يفاخر عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to say, Allah helps Hassan bin Sabit through Jibreel alayhi salam as long as he praises or as long as he defends Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Hassan bin Sabit, you all know, mashallah, his couplets, the famous ones. وَأَحْسَنُ مِنْكَ لَمْ تَرَ قَطُّ عَيْنِي وأجمل منك لم تلد النساء خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك قد خلقت كما تشاء. So he said, my eye hasn't seen anyone better than you. No woman has given birth to anyone more beautiful than you. You've been created free from faults. Is like you've been created like you wanted to be created. Hassan bin Thabit, he was very, very good at poetry. Once a group of people came from Banu Tamim and they brought a poet as well, and they wanted this kind of munazara. They were up for a challenge. Okay, our poet will say some poetry, then your poet can say some poetry. So their poet said his poetry. Hassan bin Thabit, he said so beautiful poetry that not only was he victorious, but the other poet, he became a Muslim. Subhanallah. So this is Hassan bin Sabit, mashallah. He was very, very good at saying ash'ar and poetry. Jabir bin Samura radiyallahu anhu, he says, جالست النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أكثر من 100 مرة. He said, I sat in the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than 100 times. وَكَانَ أَصْحَابُهُ يَتَنَاشَدُونَ الشَّعْرَ وَيَتَذَاكَرُونَ أَشْيَاءَ مِنْ أَمْرِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ وَهُوَ سَاكِتٌ وَرُبَّمَا تَبَسَّمَ مَعَهُمْ. So Jabir bin Samura radiyallahu anhu, he says that the Sahaba, they would say couplets, they would say ash'ar, and they would speak about pre-Islam, the days of Jahiliyyah. And Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he used to listen, and also sometimes Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to smile with the Sahaba. So poetry, listening to poetry, especially in the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is mentioned that it depends on the poetry, it depends on the subject, it depends on the mazmoon. If it's beneficial, then that poetry is good. So our elders, our predecessors, they used to listen to poetry, they used to write poetry, especially religious songs, poetry in the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the praise of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we've been told that this is a means of blessings as well. And to listen to the praise of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, this is an act of worship.